Hi there, and welcome. Thank you for joining me for a very personal story. One that begins in the sterile corridors of a hospital and ends in a place of peace, purpose, and healing. This is more than just a story about burnout. It's about rediscovering who I am, reclaiming my health, and learning to live with intention. So take a breath, settle in. And let me share with you. Burnout to Breakthrough. My journey to health and happiness. The fluorescent lights of the hospital ward hummed, a monotonous drone that seemed to amplify the throbbing ache behind my eyes. For years, the scent of antiseptic and despair had been the air I breathed. I, Dr. Anya Sharma, the dedicated cardiologist, had become intimately acquainted with the rhythm of beeping monitors, the hushed anxieties of families, and the relentless march of heart disease. My life had become a tapestry woven with threads of electrocardiograms, echocardiograms, and endless cups of lukewarm coffee. It was a life I had meticulously crafted, driven by a burning desire to heal, to mend broken hearts, both literally and figuratively. I remembered the day I received my acceptance letter to medical school. My grandfather, a humble village doctor who had dedicated his life to serving the underserved, had beamed with pride. "Anya," he had said, his voice raspy with age, "you have the heart of a healer. Never let that flame die." His words had become my mantra, a guiding principle that propelled me through grueling semesters, sleepless nights, and the emotional toll of witnessing human suffering. But somewhere along the way, the flame had begun to flicker. The weight of responsibility, the constant pressure to perform, and the sheer volume of patients had gradually eroded my passion. The hospital, once a sanctuary of healing, had transformed into a battlefield, a relentless struggle against time, disease, and the limitations of modern medicine. My days blurred into a continuous cycle of consultations, procedures, and paperwork. I rushed from one patient to the next, barely pausing to breathe, let alone connect with them on a human level. The faces of my patients, each with their own unique story of pain and resilience, began to fade into a homogeneous blur. I was a machine churning out diagnoses and prescriptions, detached and emotionally numb. The burnout crept in slowly, insidiously, like a silent thief stealing my joy and vitality. I started experiencing chronic fatigue, debilitating headaches, and an annoying sense of anxiety that never seemed to dissipate. My sleep became erratic, plagued by nightmares of malfunctioning pacemakers and collapsing arteries. I lost my appetite, and my once vibrant energy dwindled to a mere flicker. I tried to ignore the warning signs, pushing myself harder, convinced that I could overcome this temporary setback through sheer willpower. I told myself that I was indispensable, that my patients needed me, that I couldn't afford to falter. But the more I pushed, the more I unraveled. My relationships suffered, my health deteriorated, and my spirit withered. My husband David, a kind and patient man who had always been my rock, grew increasingly concerned. He watched helplessly as I transformed from a vibrant, passionate woman into a shadow of my former self. He tried to encourage me to slow down, to take a break, to seek help. But I stubbornly resisted, blinded by my own stubborn pride and my fear of admitting weakness. "Anya, you can't keep doing this to yourself," he pleaded one evening, his voice laced with worry. "You're burning yourself out. You need to take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else." His words stung, but they also resonated with a deep buried truth. I knew he was right, but I was trapped in a vicious cycle of self-neglect and relentless overwork. I was afraid of what would happen if I stopped, if I allowed myself to feel, if I confronted the emptiness that had taken root inside me. The breaking point came during a particularly grueling week. One had been on call for 72 hours straight, dealing with a constant stream of emergencies. I hadn't slept, hadn't eaten properly, and hadn't had a moment to myself. I was running on fumes fueled by caffeine and adrenaline. Then, a young patient, a vibrant 16-year-old girl named Emily, was admitted with a sudden cardiac arrest. I worked tirelessly, desperately trying to revive her, But it was too late. She was gone. The weight of her death crashed down on me, a crushing burden of guilt and despair. I stood there, staring at her lifeless body, feeling utterly helpless and defeated. In that moment, something inside me snapped. The flame that my grandfather had spoken of, the flame of healing and compassion, finally flickered and died. I walked out of the hospital that night, leaving behind my white coat, my stethoscope, and my shattered dreams. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I simply walked away without looking back. I spent the next few months in a daze, drifting aimlessly, trying to make sense of what had happened. I felt lost, confused, and utterly devoid of purpose. My identity, which had been so tightly intertwined with my profession, had been stripped away, leaving me feeling naked and vulnerable. David was incredibly supportive during this difficult time. He patiently listened to my ramblings, offered words of encouragement, and gave me the space I needed to heal. He never judged me, never pressured me, and never tried to fix me. He simply loved me, unconditionally. Slowly, gradually, I began to emerge from the darkness. I started taking long walks in nature, reconnecting with the beauty and serenity of the world around me. I rediscovered my love for reading, losing myself in the pages of books that transported me to different worlds. I started practicing yoga and meditation, learning to quiet my mind and find inner peace. I also sought professional help, talking to a therapist who helped me process my trauma, confront my limiting beliefs, and develop healthy coping mechanisms. I learned to recognize the signs of burnout, to set boundaries, and to prioritize self-care. It was a long and arduous journey, but with each small step forward, I began to feel a glimmer of hope. I realized that my worth was not defined by my profession, that I was more than just a doctor. I was a wife, a daughter, a friend, and a human being with passions, dreams, and a capacity for joy. As I healed, I started to explore new interests and possibilities. I volunteered at a local animal shelter, finding solace in the unconditional love of the animals. I took a pottery class, discovering a creative outlet that allowed me to express myself in new and meaningful ways. I even started writing, pouring my thoughts and feelings onto paper, finding catharsis in the act of storytelling. One day, while volunteering at the animal shelter, I met a woman named Sarah, a former nurse who had also experienced burnout. We bonded over our shared experiences, and she told me about a new career path she had discovered, health coaching. Health coaching, Sarah explained, was a holistic approach to wellness that focused on empowering individuals to make sustainable lifestyle changes. It combined elements of counseling, education, and mentorship, helping people to achieve their health goals and live their best lives. As she described the role, I felt a spark ignite within me. It was as if a dormant part of my soul had awakened, recognizing a new path that aligned with my values and passions. I realized that I could still use my medical knowledge and experience to help people, but in a way that was more sustainable, more fulfilling, and more aligned with my own well-being. I enrolled in a health coaching certification program and immersed myself in the study of nutrition, exercise, stress management, and behavior change. I learned about the interconnectedness of mind, body, and spirit, and the importance of addressing the root causes of illness rather than just treating the symptoms. As I learned, I also healed. The more I understood about health and wellness, the more I was able to apply those principles to my own life. I started eating healthier, exercising regularly, and practicing mindfulness. I cultivated a strong support system, surrounding myself with people who uplifted and inspired me. When I completed my certification, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and excitement. I was ready to embark on this new chapter of my life, to use my knowledge and experience to make a positive impact on the world. I started my own health coaching practice, working with individuals and groups to help them achieve their health goals. I focused on empowering my clients to take control of their own health, to make informed choices, and to create sustainable habits that would support their long-term well-being. I found that I was able to connect with my clients on a deeper level than I had ever been able to as a doctor. I listened to their stories, empathized with their struggles, and celebrated their successes. I became a trusted advisor, a compassionate mentor, and a steadfast ally in their journey towards better health. One day, a former colleague from the hospital reached out to me. She had heard about my new career and was curious to learn more. She was experiencing burnout herself and was looking for a way to escape the toxic environment of the hospital. I shared my story with her, explaining how I had walked away from my career as a cardiologist and found a new path as a health coach. I told her about the challenges I had faced, the lessons I had learned, and the joy I had found in helping others in a more holistic and sustainable way. She was inspired by my story and decided to explore the possibility of becoming a health coach herself. I mentored her through the certification process, sharing my knowledge and experience and encouraging her to follow her heart. She eventually left the hospital and started her own health coaching practice. She found that she was much happier and more fulfilled in her new role. She was able to use her nursing skills and medical knowledge to help people in a more meaningful way without sacrificing her own well-being. Over time, I mentored several other healthcare professionals who were experiencing burnout. I helped them to discover their passions, to develop their skills, and to create new career paths that aligned with their values and their needs. I realized that my experience with burnout had not been a failure, but a catalyst for growth. It had led me to discover my true calling, to create a more fulfilling life, and to help others do the same. Looking back, I am grateful for the day I walked away from the hospital and never looked back. It was the most difficult decision I ever made, but it was also the best decision. It was the day I finally chose myself, the day I reclaimed my health, and the day I rediscovered my purpose. My grandfather's words still resonate within me, but with a new meaning. I am still a healer, but I heal in a different way. I no longer mend broken hearts in the operating room, but I help people to heal their own hearts, to create lives filled with health, happiness, and meaning. The flame is alive again, burning brighter than ever before, fueled by passion, purpose, and a deep sense of gratitude. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you're going through burnout, feeling lost, or questioning your path, please know that you're not alone. There is life on the other side of exhaustion. There is purpose beyond the pain. And healing, real lasting healing is possible. If this story resonated with you, I invite you to take a moment, reflect, breathe, and maybe, just maybe, choose yourself today. If you found value here, please consider subscribing, leaving a comment, or sharing this with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, take care of your heart and keep your flame burning.